Have you ever wondered if being too tolerant could actually harm the very values you hold dear? We like to think of tolerance as an absolute virtue, a hallmark of an open and enlightened society. But philosopher Karl Popper, in his groundbreaking work, The Open Society and Its Enemies, issued a stark warning. Unlimited tolerance can destroy tolerance itself. This is what he called the paradox of tolerance. At first, it may sound counterintuitive. How could tolerance, the willingness to allow different beliefs, practices, and voices, ever be dangerous? The answer lies in the fact that not all beliefs are compatible with a tolerant society. If we allow intolerant ideologies to grow unchecked, they may seize power and suppress the very freedoms that allow tolerance to exist. In other words, tolerance without limits can become self-defeating. To understand this, imagine a small town where everyone is accepting of each other's differences. Then, one group arrives with an agenda that rejects the town's values of openness, seeking to dominate and silence dissent. If the townspeople tolerate this group without question, their society may gradually erode, leaving only the intolerant in control. This is the essence of Popper's warning. To preserve a tolerant society, we must sometimes be intolerant of those who reject tolerance itself. History offers real examples of this paradox. Consider the rise of totalitarian regimes in the 20th century. In the Weimar Republic of Germany, a liberal society tolerated extremist groups in the name of freedom and democracy. Yet, those very groups, fueled by intolerance and hatred, ultimately dismantled the democratic system, replacing it with authoritarian rule. The tolerant society was unable to defend itself because it refused to confront the intolerant until it was too late. John Stuart Mill, in his classic work on liberty, provides a complementary insight through his harm principle. Mill argues that individual liberty should be protected unless it causes harm to others. In the context of tolerance, this means that society should welcome diverse opinions and lifestyles, but only as long as those expressions do not threaten the rights, safety, or freedoms of others. Unlimited tolerance, without consideration of harm, can erode justice and stability. This paradox has never been more relevant than today. In our modern, hyper-connected world, we encounter a multitude of voices, some constructive, some destructive. Social media amplifies extremism, and misinformation spreads rapidly. The question becomes, where do we draw the line? How do we decide which ideas deserve our tolerance and which pose a genuine threat to society's openness? Popper doesn't give a simple checklist, but his principle is clear. Tolerating intolerance unchecked risks the collapse of the very freedoms we aim to protect. To make this relatable, think of your personal boundaries like the walls of a house. You open your doors to friends and neighbors, allowing a free flow of conversation and connection. But if you allow strangers with harmful intent to enter and take over your home, the space you've built and maintained can be destroyed. Tolerance works best when paired with discernment and vigilance. We must distinguish between those who wish to engage in mutual respect and those who seek to dominate, suppress, or harm. 3 practical takeaways emerge from understanding the paradox of tolerance. First, develop critical thinking, question ideas and behaviors, and recognize when certain beliefs are inherently intolerant or threatening. This does not mean silencing dissenting opinions arbitrarily, but evaluating whether they uphold or undermine fundamental principles of fairness, freedom, and justice. Second, set boundaries. Define what is acceptable in your personal and communal spaces. Just as a society protects laws and rights, we protect values that sustain healthy interaction. Third, engage responsibly. Confront intolerance through reasoned dialogue, education, and, when necessary, institutional measures. Avoiding confrontation in the name of pure tolerance can lead to long-term harm. Consider a modern example: online communities that tolerate harassment, hate speech, or coordinated attacks in the name of free expression often see those behaviors dominate and drive out constructive voices. Platforms that establish clear guidelines and enforce them, limiting tolerance for harmful behavior, maintain healthier, more sustainable spaces. The lesson is clear: tolerance without boundaries can be exploited, but tolerance with discernment strengthens society and human connection. Popper's paradox also challenges us personally. It asks us to examine our own tendencies. Do we accept harmful behaviors or ideologies in our own lives simply to avoid confrontation? Do we stay silent when intolerance surfaces among friends, co-workers, or in public discourse? True openness is not passive. It requires courage, judgment, and the willingness to defend principles that make tolerance possible. A metaphor to remember: imagine a garden. You plant seeds of compassion, understanding, and respect, nurturing them with care. But if you allow invasive weeds to grow unchecked, they will eventually suffocate the flowers. Tolerance is like the gardener. It flourishes when we tend to what is good and protect it from what threatens to destroy it. Without boundaries, the garden cannot survive. At its core, the paradox of tolerance is a call to balance, to cultivate openness while remaining vigilant, to welcome diversity while rejecting oppression, and to preserve liberty by recognizing when certain forms of freedom are incompatible with a just society.